The WNBA playoffs always bring intensity, grit, and unforgettable storylines. But this year, one name has risen above the noise: Aliyah Boston. The Indiana Fever's rookie powerhouse didn't just show up against the Atlanta Dream, she took over the game. In a league filled with veterans and legends, Boston proved that she's not only the future of women's basketball, she's the present. The Fever's journey to the playoffs hasn't been an easy road. For years, they've battled criticism, struggled with rebuilding, and worked tirelessly to carve out a new identity. But this postseason clash with the Dream? It wasn't just another game. It was a statement. Aliyah Boston, with her trademark intensity, didn't hold back. From her dominant post presence to her leadership on the court, she embodied exactly what this new generation of Fever basketball is all about: fearlessness. Fans were buzzing, analysts were stunned, and the Dream had no answers. It wasn't just a win. It was a domination, the kind of performance that rewrites narratives and reshapes expectations. The rise of Aliyah Boston. Aliyah Boston's journey didn't begin under the bright lights of the WNBA. It started in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, where she first picked up a basketball as a young girl. Her natural athleticism and relentless drive quickly set her apart, but it wasn't just her size or skill that stood out. It was her mindset. Boston approached the game with a hunger to improve, to dominate, and to lead. Her path eventually led her to the University of South Carolina, where under coach Dawn Staley, she blossomed into one of the most decorated players in women's college basketball. With an NCAA championship, multiple All-American honors, and a reputation for owning the paint, she became a household name before ever stepping into the WNBA. When the Indiana Fever drafted her with a #1 overall pick, expectations skyrocketed. Could she be the piece that finally brought respect and momentum back to a struggling franchise? Many wondered if the pressure would weigh her down. Indiana Fever's playoff struggles turned strength. Before Boston's arrival, the Indiana Fever were often overlooked. Their playoff appearances were scarce, their rebuilds seemingly endless. The team cycled through coaches, draft picks, and lineups, desperately searching for stability. Critics dismissed them as a non-factor in the WNBA landscape. But something changed this season. The Fever, infused with new energy, began to gel. With Aliyah Boston anchoring the defense and setting the tone inside, the entire team's identity shifted. Suddenly, the Fever weren't just rebuilding, they were competing. When they faced the Atlanta Dream in the playoffs, Indiana carried the weight of years of underachievement on their shoulders. Fans were eager, but cautious. Could this team finally deliver under pressure? Boston's dominant presence in the paint. There's no denying it. Aliyah Boston owns the paint. Against the Atlanta Dream, her presence was overwhelming. Every possession, she positioned herself like a seasoned veteran, carving out space, boxing out defenders, and demanding respect under the rim. Boston's rebounding was relentless. Offensive boards turned into second-chance points. Defensive rebounds snuffed out Atlanta's rhythm before it could begin. And when the Dream tried to challenge her inside, Boston responded with physicality, blocking shots and altering countless others. Her footwork was precise, her timing impeccable. It wasn't just brute strength, it was skill. She outsmarted defenders, anticipated plays, and dictated the pace of the game from the low post. What stood out most was her composure. In the chaos of playoff basketball, where pressure can rattle even the most experienced players, Boston remained calm. Every rebound, every block, every basket sent a message. She wasn't just playing in the playoffs. She was built for them. Caitlin Clark's support and spark. While Aliyah Boston was the undeniable centerpiece, she wasn't alone. Rookie sensation Caitlin Clark brought her trademark firepower and court vision to the matchup. The synergy between Boston and Clark gave Indiana an edge that Atlanta couldn't match. Clark's long-range shooting stretched the Dream's defense, forcing them to pick their poison: collapse on Boston inside or guard Clark on the perimeter. Either way, it created opportunities. And when Clark wasn't draining deep threes, she was finding Boston with perfectly timed passes that highlighted their budding chemistry. Beyond the stats, Clark's energy was contagious. Every time she hit a big shot or found a teammate for an easy bucket, the Fever's momentum surged. She brought flair but also focus, complementing Boston's steady dominance with bursts of brilliance. Defense wins championships. While offense grabs headlines, the Fever's defense told the real story against the Dream. From the very first possession, Indiana set the tone with physicality and discipline. Aliyah Boston anchored the interior, but it was a collective effort that suffocated Atlanta's offense. Guards pressured the ball, forcing turnovers and disrupting passing lanes. Wings rotated seamlessly, closing out shooters and denying easy looks. Every time the Dream thought they found an opening, a Fever defender was there to shut it down. Boston's shot blocking was intimidating, but just as impactful was her ability to alter shots. Even when she didn't get a hand on the ball, her presence forced Atlanta into rushed, low-percentage attempts. Meanwhile, her teammates thrived off her energy, contesting everything and running the floor after stops. Playoff basketball often comes down to who can get critical stops. Against Atlanta, Indiana proved that their defense could bend without breaking. And in key moments, it was their defensive grit that created offensive opportunities. Atlanta Dream's missed opportunities. The Atlanta Dream entered the playoffs with high hopes. Led by talented scorers and experienced players, they had the tools to compete. But against Indiana, they couldn't capitalize on their opportunities. Open shots rimmed out. Fast break chances fizzled into turnovers. And when they did manage to build momentum, Aliyah Boston and the Fever defense snatched it away. It wasn't that the Dream lacked effort, it was that they lacked answers. Their interior game struggled against Boston's dominance, while their perimeter shooting faltered under Indiana's relentless closeouts. Even when Atlanta tried to push the pace, Indiana matched their energy, turning the Dream's strength into frustration. Playoff games often hinge on execution, and Atlanta simply didn't execute at the level required. The Fever's discipline exposed the Dream's weaknesses, and every missed opportunity felt heavier as the game wore on. The crowd and the Fever faithful. The Fever's playoff dominance wasn't just about the players on the court. It was also about the energy inside the arena. Indiana's fans, long hungry for postseason success, brought a fire that fueled their team from start to finish. Every Boston rebound, every Clark three, every defensive stop sent the crowd into a frenzy. The noise rattled the Dream and lifted the Fever, creating a home court advantage that felt unshakable. For years, Fever fans endured losing seasons and rebuilds, waiting patiently for a night like this. Against Atlanta, their patience paid off. They weren't just spectators, they were participants, pushing their team to dominate with every cheer and chant. Aliyah Boston, in particular, seemed to thrive on the energy. Each time the crowd erupted, she responded with even more intensity, as if the fans themselves were part of her fuel. The turning point. Every playoff game has a moment where the tide shifts, where one team takes control. Against the Atlanta Dream, that turning point came in the third quarter. Atlanta had closed the gap, cutting Indiana's lead to just a handful of points. The Dream's bench was energized, and momentum seemed to be shifting. But then, Aliyah Boston stepped in. She secured a tough rebound, muscled through a double team, and finished with an and one. The crowd exploded. Seconds later, Caitlin Clark drained a deep three. Suddenly, the Fever's lead ballooned again, and the Dream's hopes deflated. From that moment on, Indiana never looked back. Their defense tightened, their offense flowed, and their confidence soared. Boston dominated the paint, while Clark kept Atlanta guessing from beyond the arc. Boston's leadership beyond the stats. Aliyah Boston's dominance can be measured in points, rebounds, and blocks. But her true impact goes far beyond the box score. Against the Atlanta Dream, she showcased leadership that elevated the Fever to another level. Teammates looked to her not just for baskets, but for confidence. She communicated constantly on defense, directed traffic in the paint, and offered encouragement during huddles. For a rookie, her poise was remarkable. She played with the composure of a veteran, inspiring trust throughout the roster. Leadership also meant setting the tone. Boston's effort was relentless. She dove for loose balls, battled on every possession, and never took a playoff. That kind of intensity is contagious. Her teammates fed off her energy, matching her hustle and determination. What this win means for the Fever's future. The Indiana Fever's dominant win over the Atlanta Dream wasn't just about advancing in the playoffs. It was about announcing their arrival. For years, the Fever were a team in transition, rebuilding without a clear identity. Now, with Aliyah Boston at the helm and Caitlin Clark adding firepower, the future looks brighter than ever. This victory showed the Fever aren't just a young team with potential, they're a team ready to compete now. They've proven they can handle playoff pressure, execute under the spotlight, and impose their will on opponents. For the franchise, it's validation of the rebuild. For fans, it's a reminder of why they never stopped believing. And for the league, it's a warning. The Indiana Fever are back, and they're here to stay. Aliyah Boston didn't hold back, and neither did her teammates. Their dominance over Atlanta sent a message to the rest of the WNBA: underestimate Indiana at your own risk.